Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Philosophical Weightlifting Podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Gibson, and I'm joined today by two of the coolest people I know. The first would be Dani, known often by her handle, Dani Lifts Heavy. Dani, how are we doing?
I'm great. And you bet your ass we're the coolest people that you know.
Okay, coming out a little sharp, a little feisty. I will say you are wearing a hoodie with your name on it
Yeah.
and your tag, so I think that's pretty cool.
It looks
Dani Lifts Heavy.
Yeah, from here it looks very conceited. It's just my but it's yeah.
Yeah, it's like a name tag.
Yeah, it is. Don't forget it.
Yeah. And you still have like a shop up with those for sale
Yes,
if people are interested.
yes.
Okay. Because I know I'm going to share this episode around because we're going to talk about prepping for the World Championships, the Powerlifting World Championships. We're going to talk about how to get butt ass strong, which is slightly different from really strong. And we're going to talk about kind of everything in between. So it's a lot of programming, it's a lot of competition preparation. And part of that is the fundraiser you're holding to help kind of like get us there. So I'll link that down below, but it has all the Dani Lift Heavy merch, all the Lift Heavy merch as well. So if people are interested, they want to rock that and support you, which I know a ton of people who do. Scroll down to the link below, reach out to myself or Dani, and they can help do that. Mandi, you are today's moderator. You've been pulled in to help facilitate the conversation, ask great questions as you normally do, specifically on the Two Girls, One Bar podcast with Wanda, your co-host, which is one of the best podcasts I've listened to recently. Surprised I was on it. And if people are interested and they want to listen to me talk about coaching, they can go check out that episode. So just type in Two Girls, One Bar, Joshua Gibson, and you'll find that episode and all the other fantastic ones, including the episodes Dani also was brought in on. So today's conversation is going to center around the World Championships, preparing for that, how to get, again, butt-ass strong. Before we dig into that, just a brief little up-to-date where we're at, what we're doing. Dani, how have you been the last, X number of weeks that have gone by since the last podcast we've recorded?
I wish I could remember when it was because I can't remember if we did it before nationals or after nationals, but I competed at nationals and it was one of the best meets of my life. So like I feel like we ended on that high, and then like a few weeks after that I got my invite to Worlds and I was like, oh, literally nothing could be better than an invite to Worlds. So I have been good. I feel like I am excited to have like this goal of like a Worlds meet that we're going to South Korea to compete at, and it's like this crazy opportunity. And that feels like very exciting. So like how could I be nothing but good?
Yeah, that's fantastic. And
Honestly.
your training's reflected that, I would say. And this is probably some of the best prep we've had, for a long time. You pulled 220 recently, which is 2.5 kg under what you pulled at nationals. And, thinking about the way I've approached this, and we'll dig into it to kind of detail all the secrets that I've been using to help prepare you to win Worlds, frankly. And you pulled 220, 2.5 below your best at nationals, and you've been, squatting like a menace. Your bench is blown up. So you just look really strong, really technically kind of locked in. We have a lot of good momentum. And I think we have a pretty clear path forward, which again is everything we'll get into. Before we do, Mandi, a lot of life stuff going on. If people haven't been keeping up with you on the Two Girls, One Bar podcast, give them a little update.
Yeah, so I moved to Wisconsin. I felt like I just didn't experience enough winter, so I said, let's head almost to Canada. So here I am back in Wisconsin, training with the fam at Milwaukee Barbell pretty often, and it's been great. I've literally just been here and training, and finally no pain after my quad tear, which
Wow.
I had a real bad quad tear last December and actually re-tore that quad in the spring. So it feels really good to be training without pain and coaching and doing photography, and it's great. It's great. Life in Wisconsin is actually pretty damn great. So it's been good.
Yeah.
And I've been able to focus in on the podcast. We have another PASS summit coming up in January, which will
We
be
do.
really cool. And I actually got to talk to Dani post nationals, but before she got the invite for Worlds, which I think was really cool. We got off of that podcast and I told Wanda, I'm like, she's fucking going to South Korea. Like, it's happening. Like, I know this is going to happen. I just feel it in my bones. So I'm excited to hang out with you guys today and chat about Worlds.
Yeah. That's providing a lot of great context, which is, Dana competed at nationals and, placed fourth, top three got invites. And if someone declined, that invite was extended to the next person. And Danny happened to get it and, rightfully and intelligently accepted. And so we're preparing to go to Seoul in December. And, it's going to be the first World Championships through that federation because the USAPL split from the IPF, is bannered under its own kind of like federation now, which is the International Drug-Free Powerlifting Association. And it's like the inaugural Worlds. And, looking at the start list, Danny is, slated to be top three, if not to win it. And we really think if we can put together like a really solid performance, first, because you kind of think of it like this. Tara Knott, first female to win an Olympic medal in weightlifting. I think she won gold. And I think she got bronze initially, but the Bulgarian got popped. And it's like, oh, people know her as like the first female in weightlifting to win an Olympic medal. And, Danny could be the first female in this federation to win a world championship title in the 90 kilo class. So it's just kind of like a little bit of history kind of also baked into this. So I think the best place to start giving the kind of lay of the land with the podcast, which is performance, coaching, programming, sports science, S&C, is really the nuts and bolts of the training. Like, how are we going to get you there? Mandi, I don't know if you have a place you'd prefer to start or a way you'd want to frame this.
I kind of wanted to start from the notification. So obviously you didn't think you were going at first because you were fourth instead of third. So assuming that everybody took the invitation, when we had previously talked, you weren't planning on competing for a while. So I'm curious, when you guys got that invitation, what were kind of the instant changes you made? Like, how did you relook at the framework of her training and say, okay, let's switch gears because now it's time to train to win Worlds?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people listening to the podcast are going to have a pretty good understanding of like this basic periodization model that starts high rep, low weight, and kind of like if we're looking at a graph, moves pretty linearly up in intensity and pretty linearly down in volume. Generally, what that means is that reps are going to drop, weights are going to go up. So it's kind of this crossing. So maybe a program, week one will be sets of 10, sets of 8, sets of 7, sets of 9, sets of 11. It's gonna be in that high repetition range because the weights are low. So to make that difficult enough, challenging enough to stimulate some progress, you're gonna have to kind of ramp the reps up. So a traditional model is gonna start higher rep, kind of sequence down. My thought, and kind of lucky we did this, was, hey, Danny, I think, has really milked those like high repetition sets for kind of all we can get from them. She's like smashed sets of 10 at like 405 pounds in the squat, smashed like high rep sets and hit really, really big weights. And a way for me to help her build a lot of momentum in her training is not to compare her to those past set PRs or rep PRs, which would be, at this body weight, I was able to squat 184 for 10. It's like, will we do that again? I'm not sure, but that would take a lot of like really deliberate, really like concentrated work at just like that one goal. Powerlifting is not about your max set of 10. At the end of the day, it's about the competition, regulated lift, which is a 1RM to standard. And thinking about like how much work we'd have to put into those high rep sets to hit PRs or to just like get them to be as facilitating as we want them to be, I don't think there's not quite the payoff there because, she did In her last prep, she did 170 for 7 in the back squat. And then she ended up squatting 187.5 at the meet. That's like, I don't think that translates. I really don't like
Yeah.
that. To me, that's not worth, the salt's not worth the shake. So instead, it's like, okay, I think I even told her this, let's kind of stay below that like 5 rep per set range and kind of live there. And the way I wrote a training block out is, hey, let's actually work up to a single at 80%, get volume up along the way, touch that. And that was after she got back from Cabo. So it's like super low key, super chill, breezy single at 80%. To be honest, it didn't look great. It looked pretty hard. And I was like, oh, 150 is moving like that. But we did that kind of as a bench, kind of like a benchmark. And then the way the block's written is week 1's kind of like an intro week. You kind of shake out the cobwebs. Week 2 volume goes up, reps per set goes up, and then week 3 volume goes up again, ramps up again. And this is because she is very strong and 90 kilos, so like carries it around a ton of muscle, super strong. So I want to give her a little more time to accumulate work. And then that week 4, we're going to really drop volume hard, push the intensity, and then on week 5 kind of test and see where we're at. So started at 80% single, was 150 in the squat, and the deadlift it was like 180, and then bench is whatever, it's still kind of irrelevant numbers. And then by week 5 she squatted 170 for 3, and it moved pretty well. She probably could have done it for 5, and then pulled 220 for 1. And that 220 moved better than the 222.5 did at nationals. So that was like, that like 5-week block was almost like a small little program. So basically the way her training's written is we're just going to hit 5-week blocks. And all I really look for is the average intensity, like the average weight on the bar goes up block to block. And then that we're kind of like beating whatever standard we set in the last block. So maybe if we go sets of 2 in the back squat now, I told her I want her to rep out 180. So maybe we do another triple, we do 180 for a triple. In the deadlift, like I want her to pull over 100% from the blocks. So I'd love for her to pull like 230 to 240. In a perfect world, a world where like rainbows exist, or sorry, unicorns exist. I was getting ahead of myself. That world is like, the one we're currently in. Unicorns exist. If she'd pull 250 from the blocks, that would be fucking insane. Like my eyes would just fall out of my head. I'd have to like duct tape them back in. So if she could pull 250 from the blocks, like she's good for a really big single from the floor. So those are kind of some benchmarks we're going for. And I think honestly, this block, if she feels good, pull like 225 from the floor. So kind of what I'm trying to communicate about her training is that we've really moved from this like traditional model of higher reps to more low rep sets, condensing everything to maybe like 5-week blocks that have like little tests or KPI at the end, and that kind of repeat and kind of just like stack on top of each other. So it's not quite as sequenced, it's not quite as dramatic. I think it just gives us the ability to like move the knobs and like fine tune things a bit more. So like where she started honestly was kind of here, just because I wanted to play around with some stuff. But we did increase her squat frequency, and double down a little bit more on her benching. So I think those are like the only adjustments we kind of like slipped in because of the prep.
Yeah. I like that you mentioned not using the high rep sets, even though she can smash them, because that makes complete sense. How are you using more of her previous data? Because I think one of the unique things about you and Dani is she is not a new athlete to you. You guys have been working together for quite some time now. So how are you using all of the data that you've collected over the years with her to kind of project on what can be done now, even though she's in a different weight class?
Yeah, I think a lot of that is, you kind of start, and so funny, I've been kind of teaching her to program, and to like write training so she can write a program for her brother Casey, and also if she wants to take on any clients, and like I could help support her, she could write their training. So shout out to Dani,
Let's
future
go.
client that she takes to a powerlifting meet. But she was asking me like, how do you pick total reps? How do you pick reps per set? And those are the things I would get tripped up on when I first started. And a lot of it you don't realize is you kind of just guess to start. It's like, what's the best approximation of like how much work you can do and recover from and make results. And what I programmed for initially, it was a lot of guesswork. It was a lot of like numbers on a spreadsheet and just seeing what happens. And by the grace of, God himself, it worked, and it kept working and kept working. So a lot of those numbers I would have is generally going to be like total reps. And I kind of live, I'm looking at a spreadsheet now. We kind of live between, say, like 78 and like 150 reps per week. And 78 is going to be like low week, maybe like week of the comp, or the very first week of the program. And then 156 reps will be like the final week of like an accumulation phase where we just build volume over every single week. That might be kind of like the peak number she's going to hit, in block 3 or block 4, or it might be like the biggest week as she starts to taper volume off into the program. So it might be like 3 weeks out, she hits kind of like peak volume and then drops significantly and then drops significantly. So a lot of that has helped me direct kind of like total work she would do. And then obviously I have like a lot of like average weights and all that stuff. But, the program kind of morphs over time to where it just takes on these small little adjustments and changes and kind of like assimilates all the findings. So I think a lot of, the bigger pieces of the puzzle are going to be like exercise selection. Like if we look at her bench, like technically as good as it's ever been, and then the bar is moving really, really well. And that's like a ton of pin bench press and then a ton of like Larson bench. And, Larson bench is just like an absolute strength movement for the upper body. So for people who aren't able to bench frequently, or that want to isolate kind of like their pressing muscles, like that's a great option. And for her, it's really helped her bar path and then just put more work into her pecs and shoulders. For the squat, kind of knowing that we've milked, I think like a 2x frequency, like twice a week. Like we did that for 5 years. And now it's like, okay, we gradually got her used to 3 times a week with a belt squat, and then added in a low bar day kind of as like a technique option. Started to introduce that. That's been a huge change just based on like her history with like training frequency. And then for deadlift, honestly, that still has worked really well. So I really haven't changed anything. It's like mid shin block pull, one day, pulls from the floor the next, and then on the day she pulls from the floor, we do like a really slow tempo variation as like her volume work, just because she struggles to build tension off the floor. So like that, we still haven't ran that dry. So that's kind of how we've integrated a lot of the things we've kind of learned about her. It's like frequency, exercise selection, total volume, and then just building out smart progressions in terms of like weights in the first block and then kind of across blocks before we peak for a meet.
Yeah. How are you kind of measuring with Dani as progress goes along? Because she dropped weight classes. We're now lifting heavier weight. So as that intensity goes up, things change. I had a conversation one time with somebody about programming for a beginning power lifter is not the same as if you program for Ray Williams, right? Like
Yeah, totally.
your tonnage and your movement is completely different when you have somebody who's lifting, you know, who's butt ass strong, as you like to say. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like that, it's a
Yeah,
completely
yeah.
different world, and looking at that volume and intensity is different than, like a general power lifter. So how are you guys measuring that? How are you getting feedback from her as you get closer to Worlds?
Yeah. So one thing that I think is always important is, how does the bar move? Like, that's the most important thing. And how does it feel? If you like come in and you're like, holy shit, like I must have like slept in gold dust because I'm on shit today. I think that that's like a very important part of it. So when I build out blocks now, the blocks are longer because she is strong. So we're going 5 weeks because I want to give her more time to adapt and like accumulate work. For other people, it might be like 4 weeks and be super jammed in, super abrupt, quick. And that, I think that if you don't have like really solidified PRs, might be just like a little too fast, unless you just stack blocks. So it's also like, how long do we want to take to hit a PR in whatever we're trying to train or improve? So for her, it's like, in the triples, doubles, and singles, or the variations, like 5 weeks will give us some time to see how much like this style of training has worked, and then the next 5 will kind of let us double down on that. So I see all this as kind of like the first block sets a base, the second one iterates on it, the third one iterates on it, and then we really know, we have a really good sense of like how to peak for a powerlifting meet, which is pretty specific, pretty frequent, high intensity, but like still getting enough work to not like lose that kind of edge. So I would say uh, those are kind of the big things I focus on. And then Danny, one thing I did want to ask you about is how do you feel like this has kind of like been processed through you? Like, how have you taken to all these changes that we've made?
Yeah, I always feel like I adapt pretty quickly to any new style of training, but this one, it was like immediately I was like, "Oh, okay." And like to go back to what you said of like I'm not doing a bunch of like 10s and 7s and 6s and all of those, is like I'm literally in like a powerlifter's dream of just doing like I'm doing less than like sets of
Yeah.
5, right? Like
Yeah.
for every single day. And it feels good. Like I feel fresh every day. There's only like a couple of times that I've been like really cooked after, and it was after that week 5 when I pulled that 220. Um and I pulled like I think I was only supposed to pull 210, and it was like, okay, pull 215. Okay, well, I'm gonna pull 220. So it's like, we pushed it a little bit, but it's been really fun because I'm not ever gassed, so I don't feel burnout, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm excited to go train because I feel good. My body feels good, and I feel strong as well." So it's been fun too to have this like little mini test at the
Mm,
end, because
yeah.
I'm like, usually we have to wait until the week, 2 weeks out from a meet, 3 weeks out from a meet to start kind of like testing that. So to kind of like, to get a chance to pull 220 in the middle of a very long meet prep was really cool. And it made me feel more excited for like, okay, and what am I going to get to do in the next 5 weeks? So it's a different than what we've trained before. But again, like I don't feel beat up. Like I don't feel tired. I don't feel, like those days when you like open up you're like, "Fuck, okay, here we go again." Like everything hurts and here we go. Like I haven't had one of those days, and we've been in this meet prep for 10 weeks already, I think.
Hmm.
And so I just feel like excited, and I'm like, and I also feel obsessed with training. So I'm like, maybe it's not normal for everyone, but like that's how I feel
Yeah.
about it. Like I feel good.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think I think an important point to make is the way we would try to approach it before is like have all these proxies of improvement, and they kind of like one leads to another leads to another.
Mhm.
So it's like basically the alphabet, right? It's like if I do a 10 RM, that's going to be the first one. If I do an 8 RM, that's going to be the second one. If I do a 5 RM, that's going to be the third. And it's like, oh, that kind of like shows us where we're headed. And we know we're going to get to a 1 RM PR at the end of it. Um, that kind of like it just stopped working because I couldn't program in a way that got it to work anymore. So what I decided to do is like, hey, let's see if we can, touch that the most important part of it, which is like a 1 rep max earlier or more frequently, and see like have our finger on the pulse and say, actually on meet day, where are we going to be versus all these proxies of, if we do this and then this and then this and then this, it might get us to, 230. It's like, oh, let's just fucking pull 230 in the gym.
Yeah.
Cause you rarely, at least like over the last few months, maybe a few years, have touched PR weights in the gyms.
Yeah.
In the gym, it's always generally a competition. So I think
Hmm.
like, hey, let's dig into that a little bit sooner, have some fun and push and see what we can do.
Yeah.
And then that way it's not as much of a surprise.
Yeah.
Um,
I wanted to add too that it like to make your programming and training harder. I was like, hey, I want to drop weight classes 2 years in a
yeah,
row.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
like, right, like it's hard. Like I was thinking about, Mandy, you asked about like what data are you using, and Josh brought up like, oh well, you've squatted 184 for 10, but I was also 50 pounds heavier when I
Yeah,
did
yeah,
that.
that's true.
So like
That's true.
Mhm.
the data is skewed. So like,
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
could I do that now? Oh fuck. I'm like
Yeah.
184 for one. I'm like, I'm sweating. I need smelling salts and an energy drink and lots of Advil. So, like, I didn't make it easy on Josh. So he's really had to, like, I think, get creative and kind of like meet me where I'm at now. And I think we're finally now starting to see, like, after nationals, we had a really good training block, and nationals, we're
Yeah.
really starting to see like this. We've figured something out, that's really working for both of us.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
last comment I'll say before Mandy, I'll let you kind of jump in is I think, a positive trait, like a really helpful trait, also slightly toxic, is, you tell me that and I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter. You should still get strong.
Yeah.
You should still all-time PR all the time. I mean, that's like everything I do, there are all these external influences, and it's like, doesn't mean fuck all. Let's just fucking get the work done,
Hmm.
X, Y, and Z. Whether it's training or work or life, it's just like, I understand those exist, but like in the face of them, regardless, like still fucking smash shit. It's really good because it's like, let's figure out a path forward. Because I would want you to do that. Like, I want you to pull 230 and squat, I squat 200. But like, bench 110 would be fucking dope.
Hmm.
And, I think that's going to get us there versus like, oh, but you've also done all these things. So you're probably not going to be able to, it's not, and it's like, no, fuck that. Like, I think we can do it. So let's do it. And I think
Yeah.
that's like a really helpful mindset to have because it's just more forceful and more, you know, does it, just unrelenting. And I think
Yeah.
that's what you need, especially in sport.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're mentioning is like you say toxic, but like it's not a toxic trait, it's a high performance trait at the
Yeah.
end of the day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like we're
Yeah.
not training for health anymore. You're training to win worlds, right? Like we're
Yeah.
not
That's
training
right. That's
like
right.
so you can walk your dog better. You're training to win worlds. So this is a different thing. Same thing with like
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
shit going in your life. Like you still go to the gym. That's a world champion mindset, not a Saturday 9 a.m. class mindset. You know what I mean? So I
Totally.
think
Yeah.
what you're saying is toxic is not toxic when it comes to high performance. It would maybe be toxic for someone's mom or a general hobbyist,
Totally. Yeah.
but that's not the case here. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
So I
No,
think that's
I
really different.
no, that completely makes sense. And I think, that's something important to bring up for people who are listening who might think, I've also done these things. Why can't I improve? And it's like, yeah, but like those things, like dropping weight classes or changing your body composition is like also very important. Making concessions to like spend time with, friends and family and, having some semblance of like a social life. Like those things are also very important. Um, Foregoing that to train well, and I did this like 5 times a week, but double days, like that's unnecessary. That's like over the top. So I think it's
Yeah.
a good point to bring up, like, what is the difference between like high performance and someone who really just wants to maximize like their return on their health, but also their return on, you know, what they can enjoy from their life because of training.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to go back and touch on developing maximal strength. How often are you? I know you're doing some sort of testing at the end of each 5 week block, but how often are you testing that actual maximal strength? When she pulled the 220, did she also push for a squat and a bench, or did you just push deadlift? Like, how are you balancing that along the way?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And one thing I'd love to do, and I haven't yet, is get some sort of like velocity tracking unit for Dani and just
I was
have
going to
her like
ask
look
about that
look at
too.
speeds. I need to, and if anyone wants to donate a handsome lump sum of money to the podcast, I'd gladly take it and buy one.
Donate
But
to Dani going to Worlds first.
yeah, please. But the way we do it, like cheaply or frugally, is we have proxies built into the program. So her last block, so week 6, she's on week 13, week 6, high bar single at 80%, it's 152 kilos. It's like, okay, KPI for the squat. And then for deadlift, a single at 75%. I said optional increase to 80 if you're feeling good, bumped it up to 180, fucking smashed it. And then she did a bench single at 84. So we had singles all the way down. And then I actually had a tempo back squat single because I wanted to like have her push that harder so that like the technique carryover was a little bit more like ingrained, because sometimes you just go a little too light, it's a little too easy, and then you don't see that transfer as much. So week 6 she was hitting singles and quite a few lifts, with the expectation of like, hey, we're probably going to revisit some of that stuff. And then fast forward to week 10, which was basically peak week, and I just kind of opted, because we're really far out, to push like multi-rep sets. So in the high bar squat, she did a heavy triple and she did 170. So that probably puts her at like 182.5 for a back squat, which is really good for where we're at in the prep. And then we did obviously the 220 deadlift. It was only programmed to go to like 92.5%, but she pushed it because she was fucking cruising that day. And then for bench press, we did another triple and we did it at 90 kilos. So to kind of recap, start of the block, 152 squat, 180 deadlift, 85 bench. In the bench, she tripled 90, squat tripled 170, and then pulled 220. So like, I just want to see that growth from week 1 to week 5. The way that kind of moves from like 1 to 3 reps can kind of be based on the progression and distance from the meet. And to be honest, like some of this depends on volume. So if we have a certain amount of training we have to do, we kind of just allocate reps based on where we're at in a training block. So if we're earlier on, we might allocate reps in the lower percentages. And if we're kind of further along, I might have to sprinkle those at like more 80% sets, more 90% sets. So if we have like triples, sometimes that's just due to the amount of work we need to get done, not because triples are inherently better than doubles or inherently better than sets of 4. It's just like, we got to get some training done. So we're going to spread it across the board in sets of 3. So that's kind of the lay of that training block. And for the next one, it's like, hey, let's give that one a facelift, make some adjustments to the accessory work, maybe some of the strength lift. So instead of tempo like 303, might do like a 4-2. But we're not overhauling it. We're just making slight adjustments so that one, the weight on the bar can go up. Which is honestly, I've been interning with WVU football and kind of looking at the way the head strength coach programs there, and he'll build in changes to like implements to increase load. So we might first block have like a good example, like plate front raise. Maybe the next block's like a dumbbell front raise. Last block is like a barbell front raise. And it's like, okay, well, what's the very obvious thing that changes? Like weight. Because if you have a plate, you have a 25, 35, 45. You have a dumbbell, you might have 225s, 235s. If you have a bar, you might have 115 pounds. You might have, 100 pounds, which would be more than all of those other things used over the previous 2 blocks. So when you look at tempo back squats, you might have like a 303 that constrains load. Then you might have like a 4-2, which allows you to lift a little bit more. And then you might have like a 0-3, which is probably going to be like the heaviest load for a tempo squat. So when we like facelift that last block, it's like, hey, let's make adjustments to the variation so that weight on the bar goes up. Technique's still like locked in, but everything's just slightly easier so we can push intensity. So that's kind of how we use KPIs, which would be singles, doubles, and triples, and then a cross block sequence them. So she doesn't get like really stale using the same rep ranges. And there's almost like a built-in progression that she doesn't have to think twice about like load going up. It's like built into the exercises changing.
Yeah, addressing allocation as well. How are you looking at the distribution between her 3 lifts? So again, prepping someone for Worlds and looking at what she will need to win, compared to some of the other lifters. How are you allocating, like addressing a weakness here, or how do we push her, her absolute strength and her best lift so that we know we can gain more kilos there? How are you deciding that allocation?
Yeah, that's actually a phenomenal question, by the way. And one thing I've thought a lot about, which is, she never feels like super tired from benching, like super beat up. And Dani, if I'm wrong, like,
She's
tell
a
me.
very tight relationship with Larson Press. I watch her do it a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
They're
she never.
they're in a serious relationship.
Yes.
Listen, Larson Press remains faithful. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Always there for me. Always goes well.
Yep.
Yeah. So she never gets super fatigued from bench, right? So my thought was like, okay, we have a certain amount of work we need to do. We generally break that up by bucket, so squat, bench, and deadlift, and we'll break that up then by percentage of total volume. And she used to do, I think, like roughly 27% squat, 27% bench, and like 45%. 27 squat, 27 deadlift, and like 45% bench. The numbers roughly work out. And I was like, okay, her bench is like kind of hitting a stall. and her deadlift's fucking just jamming, and the squat is like kind of hitting a stall. So like, let's allocate more work to them. So now when I look at her spreadsheet, she's doing about 30% of her volume in the squat. So it's like a 3% increase, and then bench is about 50%. So that's like maybe like 3 to 5% increase, and her deadlift's like 20%. So we scaled that back quite a bit, and her deadlift's like shooting up. So I think that's been like a great adjustment. And then we'll do that for the first two blocks. And like the way I have it written, because I'm looking at it, is the first block's like 30%, 50%, 20. Second block, same thing. And then on the third, I adjusted that slightly to 27, 47, and 25. I might not do that. It just depends on like how successful she is.
Yeah.
Because again, like you can try and, you know, quote unquote, read the room, but like when you actually learn and understand and figure out, it's like, if she's making progress, I'm not going to change anything. And if she's making great progress, I'm just going to double down. So,
Yeah.
like the anticipated adjustments even things out a little bit more. But honestly, we could probably bench more, like do more volume. Now that we squat 3 days a week, I think she's going to be able to tolerate more volume. And then the deadlift, like if it's cruising, we could just bump up intensity and keep the volume down, and she'd get good results. So we might actually just adjust that slightly. So pull a little bit less, squat a little bit more, bench a little bit more, and then see what happens. So that's kind of how I've allocated it. And then in terms of what she needs, I think we have a good sense with the start list and like what entry totals people have put in. That about what they're capable of. And I think if she can like string everything together, I think people are going to have to compete for second and third, to be completely transparent.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's good that you mentioned the adjustment that you made to the allocation percentages, because I think one of the tendencies with coaches is that if it's not broke, don't fix it. And instead of like doubling down on maybe things that are working for other lifts, they would be seeing the progress she's making with the deadlift and then being
Sure.
afraid to take, you know, volume away from the deadlift to
Sure.
distribute it to the other lifts. So I thought that was an important thing to bring up, because you can still double down on something, like you said, with intensity and not have to keep
Yeah.
all of the volume in the same place.
Yeah, and I think that's important as long as you know how to like manage that adjustment. So if you decrease volume, you should increase weight on the bar, increase the difficulty, maybe increase the frequency. That way you're stimulating it more aggressively, either like in magnitude per session or like more aggressively as in like more often. You can kind of eliminate that, like not having as much total volume going toward it. So if anyone's like, oh, you know, this thing responds really well and I tend to make good progress, and I think I want to shift some of that to like more of my weaknesses, it's like, yeah, well, then the thing you're really good at, maybe just do it a little bit heavier, a little more often, strip some volume away from it and put it elsewhere. I think that's generally a good rule of thumb.
Yeah. Danny, how have your needs kind of changed as you've gone through the adjustments in the program, and also, again, the mental preparation of training for Worlds, competing in South Korea, the travel, the everything that we kind of like have talked about privately of prepping for? How has all of this changed for you as an athlete, and what have you kind of leaned on Josh for?
I so there's like two parts to this. Part of me is like, it's not real, it's not happening. I haven't even like conceptualized it yet. And then the other side is like, oh, there is so much pressure on this meet. And I have this conversation with Josh almost every single meet that I do, that I'm like, this is high stakes. This is the most important meet that I'll ever do. I said that to him the first Arnold that we did, and then I said it to him when I was in a new weight class, and then I said it to him, right? It's always,
Yeah.
every meet we do is like higher stakes, it's more important. So like, I will let Josh tell part of this story, but when we first started training together, he asked me like, "Hey, if you cry, how do you want me to like support you?" And at that time I didn't know, but he was at like he was like, "I will support you in whatever way that you need." And as like someone who cares deeply about lifting, like it's it's an emotional roller coaster, and I'm like, this feels bad. I'm a failure. Like, this didn't move well, right? So it's like a lot of those extreme thoughts that I have, that I will go to Josh and say, "Hey, can you look at this logically and tell me, are we on track? Is this right? Am I supposed to be moving like this?" I think that's where I rely on him a lot, and um just having that kind of like like emotional support in that way is really helpful for me as like a deeply emotional person. Um, so I would say like that part of it, and then I trust Josh fully and like wholeheartedly with my training. I hardly question him. Sometimes I'll be like, "Hey, why did we do this? Why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Tell me how it connects to like the other thing." Um, I want to understand because then it helps me just like really give it my all. And sometimes my accessories, I'm like, core work, I don't want to do that. But then it's like, oh, but it's actually important because it'll help you get out of the
Yeah.
hole in the
Yeah.
bottom of
Yeah.
your squat, which is like one of
Yep.
your weak points. So I ask that pretty frequently of him of like, can you tell me why we're doing this? Or like, where does this connect to the other thing? Um, I think like other than that though, like I'm just like so obsessed with training that I'm like, cool, a new thing, let's do it. Yoke carries, I'm in. So like
Yeah.
it's hard to say like what needs have shifted. Like as long as I'm training, I feel good. Like I'm happy. I mean, and it's fun when like you're progressing, right? Like you feel strong. So like of course it's like fun. When you're not doing well, you're like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? Um and I bulked up a little bit off season, so I start my journey with Michael actually tomorrow, my dietitian, to see kind of like how is that going to change and
Mm.
what does that look like traveling internationally because I've never traveled internationally for a meet before. So I will be interested to see like what kind of changes that will make. And I've been down this road before and pulled a big fat deadlift, so I'm not worried about strength at all, like losing any strength from like any of the weight that I put on. Because I think Michael is really good at like helping me cut sustainably. So all of that to say, I think my needs are being met and I feel very supported and I feel strong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. What about, I think we're in a good spot of training now. Like we both feel confident about what we're doing. And I think for
Mhm.
me, there's still maybe some loose ends where it's like trying to figure out training block structure. But ultimately, like I trust that on week 5, we're going to be like in good shape from the training we just did. Um, After regionals, when you bombed out on squat, and but he like benched incredibly well and deadlifted very well. I think that's when he started to make the adjustment into the new like different weight classes. He started to move down, and then after that point, it really was like, how do we hang on to as much as we can and do the best we can and place as well as we can, and you were able to do that. So like Mandy's question was great. It's like, how have you leaned on me for support, but during that period of time where it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows and
Yeah.
unicorns, which all apparently exist now. um how did you feel like I was able to support you well, like, and that not just me as like a person, but like
Yeah.
Built
what were
built him up,
qualities that
Dani.
you found
Yeah.
really helped? Because people listening are coaches. Carl
Yeah.
Penny, Palm Beach weightlifting. um I don't know who else listens. Maybe you can shoot me a DM and tell me you love the podcast. But all those people listening are thinking like, okay, how do I help develop relationships with my athletes or with my coach that I can feel supported in or support, and then allow them to flourish, which is the most important thing.
First of all, how dare you bring up me bombing out of that meet? It's too soon. It's been 3 years.
Talk about
Um,
psychological impact over here.
I'm dead. It was hard. Like it was difficult because it was like there were moments where I was like, why are we even doing this? Like, what am I doing anymore? And I try not to like attach my identity to like lifting and being strong, but
Mm,
it part of it is. And so a lot of times I just needed like a reassurance, like a check-in from you and of like, can you remind me of like the big goal that we're working towards? Because like I'm having such a hard time seeing it right now. And I actually remember sending you a screenshot. It was after I think it was no, it was before that regionals meet. No, it was after that meet, that state meet. I went to nationals and then like 6 weeks later we did state and I sent him a text and I said, remind me of this when
mm,
I'm bitching and moaning later about how hard training is and how much it sucks. And I had one of those days and I was like, everything feels bad, everything's heavy, like whatever I was saying. And he literally sent me a screenshot of us and he was like, hey, I'm reminding you that we're doing this for a reason.
mm,
Like we're doing this because
yeah.
you're capable of great things. And that's, I think, something that Josh has always, in every phase of my lifting, is Josh has always had this like unrelenting belief in my abilities. And even when I don't have that in myself, which is not often, but it happens, he's there to remind me, like, hey, and don't forget, like, you've also already accomplished all of these things and you can still do these things. So, like, I know that he was kind of joking when he said about like you squatting 184 again, but like part of me is like, no, he's
Mm,
actually really thinking
yeah.
that. Like, he's actually thinking that, like, for 10. Um, which is cool because I think the dynamic in our, like, coach athlete relationship has shifted, where in the beginning I was like, I I want to lift. I want to go to nationals. And he was kind of like, sure you do. Like, sure you will. You know, like, he was kind of like the one that was bringing me back to earth. And now it's, I think, opposite, where he's like, you're going to win worlds, and I'm here on the other side like,
Yeah.
that's gonna be, like, hard, because the girls that we're competing against are fucking incredible. So strong, so talented, and I'm sure Josh is like, "Yeah, and so are you," right? Like, that's what he's thinking. So, I
You know
think
what I was you know what I was thinking? I was thinking you should hold up a mirror in front of yourself as you're saying that. I literally that's what I was thinking
see?
as you said that.
So, like, that is, and that's what I need, is like a
Yeah.
reminder, like a verbal reminder of like, no, you are capable of these things, and I believe in you. And he's really good at reminding me too of like the huge support system that I have as well within my family, my gym community, my friends, my husband. Like, he's really good at like kind of like being that voice for the rest of those people. Um and that is what I need to be encouraged, to be motivated, to be grounded in like the overall training, the training of it all, because it's, you can get so lost in the dramatics of it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
the shitty days, the days when
Mm,
you're like, "Man, my
yeah.
knees really hurt," right? Like, whatever is aching, it's really easy to get lost in those things. And I think I'm thinking of like, if I was like, if Josh wasn't Josh and I was like, "Okay, and here's a new coach and I need a new coach," what would I tell them? Like, "You better be ready to be like a part-time therapist. I'm telling you."
Yeah.
Sorry,
I mean
but
Yeah.
I mean, I think to disregard the social psychological piece of high performance
Yeah.
and training is silly. You know what I mean? It's
yeah,
honestly
Yeah.
just silly. So,
yeah,
especially at a high level, like there is this sense of, okay, there's a lot of shit happening. We're gonna get to the gym, we're gonna train. Like that's
yeah,
not a question. But there are still a lot of other things that can impact and how you prepare and create your rituals for competition and that type of
Yeah.
stuff. It
mhm,
all matters and it can all either take away or add a few kilos. And so I think it's really important that you bring that up. I want to jump
yeah,
back to a couple programming questions, but before we do that, you brought up community. I'd love to touch on the fundraising and stuff that you guys
Mm.
are doing, and make sure we kind of like full circle talk about that. Make sure everybody knows about all the opportunities. But how is it going? How did you decide like what to do? Obviously, like, there are probably people listening who maybe coach people who could compete at a high level, but funds aren't readily available. That's a super common thing. There's a lot of talk about funding, both in weightlifting, powerlifting, as well as other
mhm.
sports. So I think it's really important we address the fundraising aspect of a world championship as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'll give my piece really fast
go.
before Danny chimes in. And mine is one thing Danny's done really well and been very intentional about is you people can't donate money to you if they don't know you, or don't care about you. And what she's done is like she's expanded her reach in building like a social media presence, and she's been really deliberate about putting herself out there, and allowing people to get to know her as a person. So without that platform and that like connection of authenticity, like I don't think people would want to support you, but people also just wouldn't be able to because they wouldn't know who you are. I've also done that, like having this podcast as a platform, all the things I've done over the last 10 years, like it's allowed us to then have a place to basically say like, hey, we'd love to be supported by people who have enjoyed everything we've done and put out and watched over the years. If you'd like to do that, here's a way to support and get some fucking badass merch, also. So I think it's important for anyone who's listening is like, yeah, you have to be able to reach people and connect with them. So start there, right? Um, and that could be through, whatever means, like content or just like networking at meets, just helping people out, like supporting other athletes, right? Like handling them or just connecting with them and being a technical official or whatever. So I think that's probably an important first step for anyone who's interested. And then Danny, you can talk about the logistics.
Yeah,
You guys make my marketing brain happy. You make your
I was
marketing friend
just
very happy.
I was just talking to actually an OSU powerlifter about this. They were supposed to go to Worlds. I think it was in Turkey. And they're through Powerlifting America, so it's a completely different federation. But um, they got pulled, and he was like, my girlfriend was supposed to go, and she was, before she even had a chance to accept, they pulled it. Like, there's a lot of conflict happening in the world. And I had the conversation with him, like, like, would she go again? And he was like, well, funding would be an issue. And I said this because I have literally just experienced this. There are so many people who want to see you succeed
Yeah.
that are willing to just like support you. And it is so, like, if I talk too much about it, I'll cry because it just is so incredible to me that there are so many people that were just like, I want you to go. I want you to go to South Korea and smash shit. Like, I want to see you lift heavy. So what I did is I made my friend Aline bought this font. They won't take credit for it because they're like, oh, it was just a font. But it's just kind of like an old goth font script. And I just was like, put my fucking Instagram handle on it, Dani Lifts Heavy. Because that's like how people address me at nationals. We were sitting in the back, and there was a girl that walked by, and she was
Yeah.
like, "Oh my God, is that Dani Lifts Heavy?" And I was like, "Girl, get over here and talk to me. Like, tell me who you are." And so like that is my brand. And the more I have explored it, the more I have kind of like come to the conclusion that the reason that I think Dani Lifts Heavy resonates with so many people is like the lifts heavy part can apply to anybody. So like Mandi lifts heavy, Josh lifts heavy, right? So like just because it says my name doesn't mean that like that's not also applicable to you. So I think it's been really cool to see like this group of women who are also in 90 kilo, 100 kilo, 100 plus kilo weight class that identify so deeply with like, I also want to lift heavy, I also lift heavy, things like that. So when I put out the shirts, I they blew up. I was not expecting. I think I sold over 75 shirts, which is
Yeah.
crazy. Shirts, hoodies, there's tank tops, there's all kinds of stuff. And initially I was only going to run it for like, I think it was like 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. But people kept asking about it after the 3 weeks. And so I was like, I'm just going to let it run its course until people are done with it. Um, and then I made just Lift Heavy. So instead of Dani Lifts Heavy, it's just like a Lift Heavy. It's the same font, the same brand look. But there's a few more options. So like different colored tie-dyes. I did like a long sleeve shirt. And I very intentionally picked size inclusive brands to print the shirts on. So I know my audience. Some of us like big shirts, some of us need to wear big shirts. So there's lots of options to choose from, lots of colors. And they're all linked in my bio. So one of them is going to say hot people lift heavy, because if you're hot, you lift heavy, and if you lift heavy, you're hot. And then there's the Dani Lifts Heavy. So yeah, there's the two options to choose from. And if you're just like, isn't that good?
Yeah, I like it.
If you don't want to buy a shirt but you're still interested in like just throwing some money at it, there is another link. It's called a bio site that's also linked in my Instagram profile, and if you just scroll to the bottom of it, there's just like a donate option. And it's just been so absolutely incredible, like the support of people just like showing up, and the amount of messages I get of people like, are you so excited for Worlds? Mandi, you just messaged me that like 2 days ago. Like, are you so
Yeah.
hyped? Um,
I try to keep you hype weekly.
yeah, and so it's been really cool, and I've been posting like a series of the training that I'm doing to pull over 500 pounds, which by the way would be an all-time PR in all three of my weight classes, which is the goal. And every time I post that, like I mentioned like, oh, and I'm training for World. So I think people
Yeah.
feel like really like a part of my journey, and that's what I wanted. Like I wanted to feel people to
Involved.
feel like, yes, like involved, like you're
Yeah.
here with me, you're
Mhm.
training with me, and it's all stuff that you can go to your coach and be like, "Hey, I saw this person doing this. Like, can we incorporate this in my training?" And
Mm.
maybe it works for you and maybe it doesn't. But the purpose of all of it, like my social media and like training, I know this is not what you asked me, but this is what I'm gonna say,
Damn it,
is
Danny. I was kidding.
I I want people who maybe have lived in a body that they felt like didn't belong in the gym find a home in the gym. Whether that means strength training, whether that means cardio, climbing the stairs to train for climbing a volcano later, great. Whether that means finding CrossFit, I want people who have lived in bigger bodies to find a place in the gym, and I will never shut up about it. I will never be quiet about it because it's so powerful.
Yeah.
That's it.
No,
I'll
it
get off my
definitely is.
soapbox now.
No, 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 don't get off your soapbox. I mean, I think it's really important because the fact that you have something that you genuinely believe in has also
Yeah.
led people to support you, which has allowed you to fundraise the way that you have to,
Yeah.
right? It's about
Yeah.
knowing you, but you're also just like, you're not a dick, right? Like you're a
Yeah, yeah.
good person and you believe in something that is drawing other people in and you're making a difference and people can see themselves in you. Like that's a
Yeah.
big deal. And that is also what helps to draw support to you.
Yeah.
I want to bring up something that Danny, you and I have talked about also is, kind of this outreach to like companies doing stuff with local gyms. Like, how are you working on those types of connections, whether they flourished or not? I think it's important to kind of bring it up. And then also, then if anybody's listening and has a company and wants to support you, they can always reach out to you or Josh. But how has that outreach gone? Any partnerships developed from that?
It's hard. It's really hard. Um, it's like finding a needle in a haystack,
Mhm.
basically. Like there are so many brands, and there's also so many people out there that are willing to just do like free, advertisements or whatever, and maybe intentionally or not, but they are. So making yourself stand out is really difficult. Um, so much so that I'm like, I don't even want to do it. Like I'm so scared of it that I don't even want to do it. Um, but the worst that they can tell me is no, right? And
Mhm.
that's fine. It's also a little bit difficult because like and let's take like a race car for example, right? Like you go to a local business and you say, "Hey, I want you to sponsor my racing this season." Well, that local business can plaster their
Uh,
logo on the car, and then all of those fans see it every single weekend on the TV, whatever. I
Mhm.
can't wear branded stuff at a meet,
Mhm.
which is going to be like the probably the most viewed content that I have. So it's like, okay,
Mhm.
now how do I get creative to still include this
yeah.
and still make this the ROI for these businesses like realistic? And I haven't quite unlocked it yet. So
Yeah.
that's where it's at.
Yeah, which is also fine, but again, I think it's important to bring up both
Yeah.
in case there is someone who is interested in partnering with either of you, but also to kind of demonstrate the fact that you are building a very tight-knit, supportive,
Yeah.
willing community online. And just from, again, your marketing friend over here, I think it's really important to recognize the impact and influence of a micro influencer, which would be like an under 10K.
Yeah.
Because if you said, "Hey, I use this, you guys should buy it," majority of your followers would purchase it, right? Like you
Yeah.
expected to sell 20 shirts, you sold 75. And I think sometimes that's the type of action that allows the demonstration of the impact that you have is you have this community that wants to support you, wants to see you succeed. And so I think those are the types of things that brands, big or small, can kind of look at when they look at, a smaller sport athlete, right? Like it's not a swimmer or something where
Right.
there's multiple medals, a lot more meets, but looking at a smaller sport athlete, I think it's, again, just a super important thing to bring up. And then also, if there's somebody listening who knows somebody with a company or has a company, there's a lot of money to be made working with a smaller athlete, small sport athlete, or a micro influencer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
just
think
throwing that out
the
there.
best way to support Dani is by supporting her coach. So if you go to philosophicalweightlifting.com and go to the contact page, you can fill out a form to get coached by the man, the myth, the legend, Joshua Gibson.
Or you can just donate straight to Dani, as she said at the bottom of her
Uh,
link in her bio. You can also get coached by Josh, but just you can donate straight to
yes, yes,
Dani.
yes, yes,
And then
yes.
somebody else can give a VBT unit so that after Dani goes to Worlds and wins, then she can come back and add velocity
Yes,
into her training.
yes,
For the next championship, she'll win.
yeah,
I wanted to bring velocity back up because one of the things that I had kind of notated that we didn't really talk about yet, going back to programming, is looking at any type of like readiness measurements. I feel like a lot of the my like list of science podcasts and biomechanics podcasts that I listen to, there's been a ton of talk about, any type of sport looking at readiness training, and we're looking at, velocity, force plates, all of this type of stuff. Is there anything that you look at when it comes to Dani's training, when it comes to readiness?
yeah. That's an interesting one. And I'm so embedded in weight rooms. I mean, like from 7 a.m. to 11 today, I was in a weight room. And then from 2:25 to like 5:45, I was in another weight room. And then, I'm like online watching Danny's lifts as they're coming in. Like training is my entire life. And with that being said, athletics, specifically other sports, those ideas, like those features are very important. In powerlifting, your best estimate of readiness is like, how's your training look? How's it moving? How do you feel? Um, so I don't, and like my interest really is like, I'll give you training. Let's see if you can do it. And like, depending on that plus or minus, like that, above and beyond to, well, let's just see if we can kind of get the training in, like the work in. You just kind of make adjustments on the day, and I think that's like the most important piece. And kind of harkening back to that idea of like being in other weight rooms, I work with a lot of like adolescent athletes, like high school athletes, and they have like an off day, or they kind of feel this little like, oh, my wrist feels this way when I squat. Is that a problem? It's like, no, no, like none of those things you feel in the weight room are going to be an issue probably beyond this like point in time. And like that's the reality of it. The reality of it is it's everything we do in training is very consistent, is pretty predictable, and then pretty straightforward. So I think like test of readiness, I don't really get into it that much. I'd rather just kind of see how the bar moves and then go from
Hmm.
there. I think velocity allows you to maybe like hone in on more precise prescription. So it's like, and at at WVU they use perch units in each rack, and they'll have squat between this velocity and this velocity. It's like get between that. I'm totally up for that. Like 0.5 meters per second or whatever it is, 0.75. It's like that makes sense to me. But like actual readiness markers, like in powerlifting, the barbell for me is like the end all be all, the king and queen of that.
Yeah, I agree with that. I partially asked that because I have actually seen within the last week multiple reels where people are doing jump testing for powerlifting, and it cracks me up because half the time then they go bench and I'm like, what is happening? So it's
Yeah,
I
totally.
bring it up because I feel like I'm seeing a lot of it all of a sudden on Instagram. I want to
Well,
kind
and
of yeah, sorry, go
I
ahead.
mean, no, and I'm in the weeds of reading research related to jump testing and isometric, like maximal strength testing, like literally writing a section about jump testing right now. And it's easy, it's fast, you can do a lot of it, it's minimally fatiguing, minimally stressful, and it's very simple. And it does give you an idea of like a neuromuscular function, how impacted you are by fatigue. But that's if you have kind of like all these different complicated training inputs, and then you have like a very skilled some sport thing. Yeah, powerlifting, it's like get under the barbell, see
Yeah.
what you can do. And like, and you'll adjust. You'll adjust. It's not going to be wild swings, but when you have, in American football, we did all this conditioning, we did all this practice, all this weight room stuff, all these like stressful things. What's like a quick measure of like over time, how are we responding to that? That's a little bit harder of a problem to solve than just like, can you do your single at 85%,
Yeah. Well, and I think jump testing is kind of like the go-to because it's also accessible, right? Like
Oh,
it's kind
so
of the most like,
accessible.
I mean, people don't have to have force play to do jump testing. There's
Totally, yeah,
apps you can use, and as long as you're using the same measurement every time, you at least have some consistency. So I think
totally.
we kind of people get wrapped into it because of the accessibility of it as well. I want to kind of wrap up by touching on something you mentioned at the very beginning of the podcast, and that's the difference between training somebody for like a general, like maximal strength versus somebody who you call butt ass strong. And I want to kind of see like what are your top things that you look at or maybe do differently when you get somebody who's at that other level of strength where you're looking at a different type of maximal strength.
Yeah, I think the stakes are just so much higher that you just really have to be on your game. And the one thing I love about Dani, there are many things, is one, she's like my hype squad. So she'll just like a lot of support, which is like, oh, you're right, I am a good coach. Like I can do a good job. Which is like this like self-fulfilling cycle. And I think she is very committed, very diligent, like gets all her training done, does it to the best of her ability, gives me a ton of great feedback, and just like we have a good relationship, so it's easy. Like the back and forth is easy, and that allows me to program and coach her as well as I can. Um, so I think that like makes all of those like really complicated inputs really fun and interesting to think about, and then also they're done in a way kind of like with jump testing, right? You want it done the same time every time you jump. She does her training the same time every day, every week, every month, every year. And it's like, okay, well, I know what I'm going to get from it. But, some people, no shade to them. It's just like where your priorities lie. You like miss a handful of days because you're on a vacation, and then you're like doing something that weekend, so you kind of have to shift days around, and it's like it's so all over the place. You just don't actually know what's going on because you stacked 3 days here and then had 3 days off here, and that just like adds in this like variability that makes it hard to say like what's the training doing. So with people who are more like gin pop or just kind of like I just want to train and get strong, stakes are way lower. So like, yeah, let's just do something that's a little more like normal, typical, something that we know that's going to work, something that kind of like feels good. So like those rep maxes, like maybe we go back to those more often. Maybe you do like more 10 RMs, more 8 RMs, maybe do like variations for 5s and 8s. And you're like, look at all these freaking PRs we're smashing. At the end of the day, you don't have to squat, bench, and deadlift to 1 RM in front of like judges, in a different state or country. So you can say like, yeah, and this is athletics, right? Athletics isn't about 1 RMs. Athletics is about force production. So you can say like, oh, we did this test of maximal strength and your numbers went up. We don't have to say you did a bigger squat. It's like, yeah, your pull went up, your deadlift went up, like your pause squat went up, your front squat went up. Like we have all these other measures that like help support like you're getting stronger. With Dani, it's very specific and it's very laid bare. There's no shirking it. So a lot of that is like we need to be more strategic. We need to have like a longer term plan, and we have to be just like on our shit and make sure that like when we fail, like that's okay, but we got to like fail fast and make adjustments. And then also like when we succeed, like know why. Don't just be like, "Oh, that was great." Like, we'll see if it happens again. Like you have
Mhm.
to make success happen when you're a competitive athlete. You don't just like wait for it.
Yeah. I like that. I'm curious, just as a friend, I'm really excited for you guys because first time competing and coaching internationally is like so fun.
Yes. Yes.
Um, as someone who's gotten to do those things, I'm really excited for you guys to experience that. And so I want to know from each of you what you're most excited about for South Korea. Like, what are you most stoked for when you get there?
Danny, go
You
ahead.
want me to go first?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I won't be able to like really explore and or enjoy until after I compete, which is fine. But there is a market that I'm really looking forward to. That it's like food stalls, and they intentionally give you small portions so that you can try a
Mm.
lot of them. And it is like very like Korean food, so I'm really excited to try that. It's going to be cold while we're there, so we may not be able to do a ton of outside stuff, but there's like a couple of hikes with like waterfalls that look really
wow.
cool. Yeah, there's a library that looks awesome. There's this tower that you go to the top of it. I have all the names, but I cannot pronounce them. I don't want to like
Yeah.
do them that disservice, but
Yeah.
that you can see the entire city from up there. So yeah, all of that. My family is coming too, so like to experience this with my family is going to be really fun too. Like we've never been
Wow.
really like outside of North America. Like
Yeah.
I've been to the UK, but that's like as far as I've gone. So to be in like another country with my basically all of my best friends, Josh is going to be there. Like my family's going to be there. My husband's going to be there. If only we could get Julie there somehow.
Yeah.
That would be
What
that
about the
cherry on top.
like competing internationally? What are you
Oh,
most excited for? I mean,
is
I
that what
wanted
you
to
were?
know. No. You can say that too, but I'm curious also about like your first
Yeah.
international competition. What you're most excited about?
Um, oh gosh, probably meeting people from like all over the world
Yeah.
that also are into like powerlifting. I've actually connected with a couple of them over Instagram already, especially girls in my weight class. So like meeting them in person and just like experiencing this high level meet. I think we're getting singlets.
Oh, cool. Oh, hell
I
yeah.
think we're getting Team USA singlets, so I think that
Oh
will
my
be really
God, that's
cool.
awesome. Yeah.
And it's just gonna be like such a cool experience of like to come home after and like you probably can't see right now, but behind me I have all of my medals. So to put my little Worlds South Korea medal up there is gonna be really cool. Um, yeah, I would say that the people like I think powerlifting has some of the kindest, most excitable people that I probably ever met, and they're just like so into the sport. So it'll be interesting to see like people from different parts of the world and how they're excited about it.
Yeah. What
Yeah.
about you,
That's
Josh?
awesome. You know, it's funny you mentioned that. Like I don't know if let me see if you guys can see
Oh
it.
gosh.
Uh-oh.
I have all my little
There they are.
lanyards,
Aw.
but I have it on
Uh,
the other side too.
the
Yeah.
So
lanyards.
I have like everything I've done
Yeah.
in coaching, like my coaching career hanging up
Yeah.
on my TV. And I actually really enjoy going and putting a lanyard up and like seeing everything I've done. So
Yeah.
I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
I don't mean this in a derogatory way, but like a powerlifting competition is like a powerlifting competition. Like I'm
Yeah.
excited to see how they set it up, how they run it. But I love it for like what it is. So Danny's whole like, oh, I want to go here and explore this and do that. Like my best life, like me living my best life, is me traveling for a competition. Like I
Yeah.
was in Portland over the weekend, coaching, and it was fucking awesome. And then like prior to that, I was in Pittsburgh, and prior to that, you know, I was in Vegas or wherever. And it's like that is literally whenever I come home, I'm like, that's the perfect life for me. If I could do that all the time, I'd be really, really, really happy. So like the trip in and of itself as an experience is what I'm looking forward to. It's like the downs, the ups, the like quirky parts, and then kind of like the really excited manic parts, and then kind of everything in between where you just get that brief moment of like gratitude that you're able to do what you do.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
I have one thing to say. Josh gets really manic before I like the night before I compete at nationals. He like we were in an Airbnb and he like came over like and he was like, okay. He wrote out like 15 different scenarios and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm just gonna lift whatever you load on the bar and
Yeah,
that's
it's
my
so
plan.
funny.
Yeah, he gets
Oh my
insane.
God.
Yeah.
Not
Super
even
insane.
surprised by that. Not in the least.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well, I'm excited. I'm excited for the next time I get to do that. I get to crash your Airbnb. Danny, listen, this is what's going to happen. You're going to win.
Manic in South
Worlds.
Korea.
Yes.
Yes.
That sounds like a
Yeah.
great documentary about my life.
There you
Oh
go.
my gosh. That's what you guys need. You need like a documentary of your first international
Oh,
trip.
that'd
That would be cool.
awesome.
That would be
It'd be
cool.
so cool. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll get a camera, like a GoPro or something, and film it.
You should.
We'll
You
see what
should.
we
I
can
think
do.
that'd be the coolest
Yeah.
thing to
Yeah.
document. It's going to be such a cool experience for both of you. I'm
Yeah.
really pumped for
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Yeah. And Mandy, I appreciate you coming on
Yeah.
to help facilitate the show, help myself and Danny talk more about Worlds, how we're prepping for it, the training we're doing, what we're looking forward to most, and then how people can support us if they would like to. Which again, we'll link everything down below. Mandi, if people want to check out your own podcast, which is fantastic, or the media that you do, where can they go to check all of that stuff out?
Yeah, so media, you can follow Meet Me Co on Instagram, and I'm starting to take in interest for finals
Oh,
in
cool.
Daytona, so finals in World. So I actually have a good handful of people starting to reserve. So if anybody needs media, let me know so I can plan for that. And then you can follow the podcast at Two Girls One Bar Pod. We also are linking all of Dani's fundraising in all of our episodes as well, just to ensure that anywhere that somebody looks, they can easily find how to support the trip for you guys. So you guys will find all of her links on my stuff as well, because I'm excited for my friends to go do this. So if you follow, Meet Me Co, my podcast as well, like you'll see all of the support links for Dani and Josh.
Yeah, awesome, fantastic. Dani, if people have been living like Patrick's are under a rock, where can they go to support you?
On Instagram, it's Dani Lifts Heavy, and I've recently began my TikTok journey. So that one's like a little bit more unhinged, just like more deep into my brain. That's Dani.lifts.heavy. And I'm there all the time. I'm happy to meet new people. If you have questions, send me a message and I'll do my best to answer them.
Yeah, fantastic. For everyone who is listening, please go support these two fantastic people. If you'd like to support the show, you can go to philosophicalweightlifting.com, fill out a contact form to get coached by yours truly. You can follow me on Instagram at Josh_PhilWL. That's PhilWL. Weightliftinghouse.com. You can use the code PhilWL. I actually like that code, does really well for me, so please keep buying stuff. PhilWL, PhilWL, to get 10% off all those products. Philosophical Weightlifting on Instagram, and we will catch you all next time on another fantastic episode of the Philosophical Weightlifting podcast.